Hi, Shari. How are you? I have no idea who you are. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
My name is Shari Suter, and I'm from the interior of British Columbia. I have a farm. We've been kind of self-sustaining for about 22 years, living in Canada. We moved from Switzerland. My husband is Swiss. I'm Canadian.
Oh,
And we
I'm
moved from
starting to remember
Switzerland.
your email.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what? Like right now I have one of my ewes is lambing. I have sheep. And so it's possible that my husband might have to interrupt us. He's going to keep an eye on her and make sure everything goes okay. But
Yes, you're back. Well, we posted the last conversation. Did you find that? Hi, Shari. How are you? I have no idea who you are. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
My name is Shari Suter, and I'm from the interior of British Columbia. I have a farm. We've been kind of self-sustaining for about 22 years, living in Canada. We moved from Switzerland. My husband is Swiss. I'm Canadian.
Oh,
And we
I'm
moved from
starting to remember
Switzerland.
your email.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what? Like right now I have one of my ewes is lambing. I have sheep. And so it's possible that my husband might have to interrupt us. He's going to keep an eye on her and make sure everything goes okay. But yeah, she had to pick today and now.
Yeah, yeah.
Whole days.
Yeah, it happens. Those animals, babies of every kind, don't seem to are terribly considerate of their parents'
Correct.
timings.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. So I've been listening to your stuff on YouTube for some time. And of course, I've been following Jordan Peterson. That's what led me to you. And before I forget, I just wanted to thank you for, I know many people have, and I know that they all mean it as sincerely as I do. We really appreciate all the time and effort that you put into this because it's really, really helpful. And I've been able to refer lots of people to your YouTube channel just for that extra insight, that they can get from watching your videos. So it's been great, really great. And the conversations are actually really great too. I've enjoyed them a lot.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, the conversations never get quite as many views, but I love the conversations.
I do too, because it's where the rubber hits the road.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's what really interests me is how is this, this is where everybody is applying all these ideas and how is that working out for them and where is it leading them ultimately.
Yeah.
And that's of course surprising both myself and you too, I think.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, exactly. And I think you said it very well. So usually we just get the show, what's going on, but what a huge, as a pastor, especially because you get this as a pastor, because you preach, but you also get it coming back. And so for me, being able to have this channel, to have us talk about how are these ideas changing me? What new ideas am I having? And then to have people share their stories, this is just so much fun.
It is. And that's what really matters, I mean, people can have lots of ideas and they can talk till, the cows come home. But it's how those ideas are improving their lives and, spiritually and emotionally and physically and, even financially. And so that's really, to me, I'm a very practical, I'm like the ultimate pragmatist, I think, if it doesn't work, that's it,
Well, you have no choice when you're on a farm. I mean,
well, that's right. Yeah. You kind of get formed that way, like experience forms you into this person who, you just don't have a whole lot of time for things that aren't, applicable. They don't have to be practical, but they have to be applicable.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I'm also a Christian. I've been a Christian since I was about 19 years old.
Okay.
I didn't grow up in a Christian home. I'm 56 now, so
Okay.
it's been a long time. I'm also married. I'm married for 33 years. I have 3 children.
Congratulations.
And yeah, and my oldest daughter has 3 children, so I'm a grandmother.
Wonderful.
And
I'm jealous.
yeah.
I'm not a grandparent yet. I'm leaning on they're not married yet either, so I don't lean too hard, but it's like at some point, y'all,
yeah.
little something in return here, grandbabies.
It's great, but the only problem is they're all in Europe. I'm in Canada.
Oh.
So, yeah, they took advantage of their Swiss passports and they all went traveling and then, met the loves of their lives and so on. So that's where they are. Yeah, and they're doing well. I'm actually very proud of all my kids. I think they're fabulous. So
wonderful.
Yeah. And as far as my personal life, my Christian life, I was not raised in a Christian home. My parents became Christians when I was about 14 years old. And I had a, turbulent teenage years and so on and so forth. I don't really need to get into all that. But my conversion story, just in a nutshell, was that I was pregnant at the age of 19. I moved back in with my parents. I was not interested in going to church. My parents, by the way, they came to know the Lord through the Plymouth Brethren. So,
okay.
Yeah. So a very conservative, very tight-knit group, not closed, but very close to it.
Yeah.
And I moved in with them, and when I had my daughter, I decided that I needed to give her all the best options in life so that she didn't have to go through some of the things I did.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I would start just by reading the Bible as a textbook. I remember saying that to myself. I'm just going to read it as a textbook,
You fool!
I know! So I got sucked right in.
Sam Harris wasn't around to warn you.
No. I figured, it's done a lot of good for the world, I think. So, maybe it'll help me raise my daughter. And I fell in love. I started in Matthew, and by the time I got to John, I was madly in love with Jesus.
Wow.
I couldn't believe, I think the thing that stood out to me the most was that I couldn't believe how smart he was. I was just like, his responses to people were so, like, they were not human, Yeah. And he drove it home every single time, Yeah. So, and that to me was just divine, like there was no other explanation for that. So, so that's kind of that in a nutshell. There's a lot
That's
of
a great story.
that, but
That's a great story.
Yeah. And of course I being Canadian, when Jordan Peterson raised his head above the parapet for Bill C-16, I was like, well, who is that? I like that guy. He
raised his head. Hey! I found Bucko last week, so
that's right. Oh yeah, right.
He's back in the office.
He's back in his spot.
Back in his place. He always falls off the shelf. So drinking lobster.
Yeah.
Anyway, go on. I'm sorry, I interrupted.
That's all right. So I've kind of always had a bit of a radar for truth and honesty and integrity. It's just something that it stands out for me. I can spot it. I'm not always right, that's for sure. But when I saw that, I saw it on the news actually, and I was like, okay, who is this guy? And Googled his name, and he's either fabulous or he's absolutely crazy, which is actually what he said, right? About it. And and of course I ran into all his lectures online, and I thought, and I love, like, I did the personality test, and I'm very high in openness. So I'm just like, I love ideas. I love talking about things, you know, anyway. So when I saw what he was all about, I just thought, well, you know what, I'm going to start with the personality lectures. And he had started the biblical series at that point. He was kind of midway through the biblical series, and I have to give myself little rewards. So I promised myself that if I was a really good girl and I listened to all the lectures, I could have the biblical series at the end.
I know that strategy.
Yeah. And so I slogged through everything. And of course, by the time I got to the biblical lectures, I had a really good idea. And it was a good thing I did it that way, and I wanted to, because I needed to know what is this driving force for all of this? You know, what is the focus in this man's life? And there's got to be a lot of impetus there. So, yeah. And then of course I, ran across your videos, and I watched many of them, and I don't always have a lot of time to watch as much as I'd like. Winter is my, I hunker down and do that.
Yep.
Yeah. Now we're lambing and gardening, and that'll all start pretty soon, and then it gets too busy. But yeah, and one of the things that stood out to me about what you were after was, what is going on here? It was like you were, and I understand this as a Christian for many, many years, and I've been to many different churches, and I've seen this and that. How is it that the psychologist can rally all these people to the Lord, like to God, in that direction at least? And the churches are just like, they're just, they're like the Hunchback of Notre Dame, just limping along on one leg,
Ooh, hunchback symbolism. Oh my, this is going to be interesting.
So, and I have, being the kind of person I am, I'm always thinking about things, I'm always tossing ideas around. And so I thought, I need to talk to Paul, and I need to throw this out to you, and I need your opinion on these things. I don't want to tell you what I think.
Okay.
Because I think that, like, I actually don't get to have these conversations very often.
Yeah.
Being where I live.
Yep.
And so it's nice for me to also share some of this with you and get your feedback. You've been to seminary, you've been a pastor for many years, and I know that you know a lot more than I do. So I'm just, if you don't mind, I'm just going to kind of throw out a few things, and
it's
then
your time.
and then
I'll play along.
We'll get I'll get your response.
Okay. If I go on too long, don't be afraid to cut me off.
I will. You know what? We can always do it again, because right. I think it's the kind of thing that it's pretty heavy. I think it can get pretty heavy, what we're going to talk about here. Okay. So, I'm just going to look at my notes really quick here. Okay. So I'm a firm believer in getting back to the beginning, so to speak, quote unquote. Right. Yep. And for me, the beginning is Genesis.
Yep.
And there's so much truth in Genesis. There's so much there that you can always kind of go, back and then from that point try to move forward.
Yep.
So thinking about the difference between, or the difference in effect that Jordan Peterson is having compared to the church, let's say. My question is, or my observation, and it's going to be really hard for me to get this all, coherent. Oops. Everything okay? 2 babies? Oh, wonderful. Oh, wow.
Wow,
Okay,
congratulations.
well, we can still talk.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay, so so the church places a lot of emphasis on our lack of like our insufficiencies, let's say. This is my experience, okay? Now this might not be everybody's experience, but so there's this, this idea of the sinful man, the dying to self, the crucifying the old man, that, all this kind of thing, right? So the church, generally speaking, places a lot of emphasis on that. And just as an example, this is kind of a living example. I was in counseling many, many years ago, and one of the things with a church person, and one of the things that we were doing was learning how to die to self, right? So it was like, get up in the morning and you could pray through some of these prayers, and you could do these things, and then you get up and you move and you try to be the best person you could possibly be. And I just felt like it was like spinning my tires in a big mud bog, like that's how it ended up feeling to me.
Yeah.
And I made the analogy to this person who was well-intended and it was all good.
Yeah.
That I felt like, if I get up in the morning and I crucify the old man, right? So literally like crucify myself to a cross.
Yep. Then
I'm hopping around on a pogo stick, basically. I don't have my hands or my feet. and the slightest obstacle sends me flying face first into the mud.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so that was what I was seeing. Now, years and years and years later, and a brain injury later, I was in cognitive behavioral therapy. Mm-hmm. And I said to my psychologist, this is just like Christianity. This is, you have to do the work, you have to change your mind, that will change your feelings, which will then change your thoughts, right? Like, so you got to get up, you got to crucify your old man, you got to pop around on your pogo stick and hope to God that you don't fall flat in your face. And so I said to him, this is not going to work for me, because it didn't work for me in the church either, right? Because that, to me, that isn't grace. Mm-hmm. And I know grace can be taken out of context, and I know it can be used to ice over a whole lot of really bad things. Mm-hmm. And that's not how I mean it. So let me say it this way. Let's say the church says, you're a sinner and you need God. Mm-hmm. Okay? Mm-hmm. Which is what the church says. Yep. Compared to Jordan Peterson says, you know you're a sinner. Mm-hmm. You know your insufficiencies. You know you're not cleaning your room. You know that you need to be a better person. You know that you need to be a better husband or a better wife, right? Mm-hmm. And you can be that, mm-hmm. Okay? Mm-hmm. So I think that there's a gap there. Mm-hmm. For people. Mm-hmm. And I think that gap, now, here's my question to you. The church tends to see our humanity as the sinful part of us, right? Christ comes to indwell us, and then we're saved, but we still have to deal with sin. Now, is that my perception, or is that correct?
Well, the task of pastors and theologians is to split words. And the church has traditionally said we have 3 enemies. We have the devil, we have the world, and we have our sinful nature. I just finished doing a video on the big liberty video with Peterson. And there's a video that comes after it that you might or might not have seen.
I did watch.
Okay, the second one. and actually a conversation I had yesterday with Nick, where we talked about, and Nick brought up Calvinism.
I started it, but I haven't finished that one yet.
Okay. There's an unresolved question in Christianity. And when I say unresolved, I mean that all of Christendom has not yet resolved it. And so this is Calvinists versus Arminians, this unresolved question about how does God work with respect to how do we work? And C.S. Lewis actually addresses this a bit in Mere Christianity, and says that God's working and our working is not like two bricklayers standing and each contributing bricks to a wall.
Yeah.
And that, I think, gets into, now I often talk about with Jordan Peterson stuff, God number one and God number two. Yeah. God number one is immanent. It is the God that is built into us via psychology and formation for over thousands and thousands of years. God, has built stuff into us, and that's the immanent God. But then there's the transcendent God, which is much closer to the conscious agent that acts, that we associate with action. So, and I actually like a lot of Peterson's imagery in terms of burning off the dead wood. That's very similar to Christian mortification. But exactly knowing what is dead and what is living is you're never quite sure. And, perhaps it's kind of like, and you, in terms of farming, deal with these unsure places all the time. For example, I'll use an illustration like clipping the nails of my cat or my dog. I mean, you got to clip those nails, but you don't want to cut it, the phrase, cut it to the quick, where you're going to hit that vein and it's going to bleed out. But and so you're always in there. And so when it comes to our mortification, it's a process of discovery moving forward. I love your imagery of the pogo stick, because what happens too often, I think, is that, okay, so you have this set of rules, and so you have the Mosaic Law, for example. So here are all the rules. And if you listen to David Nasser in the video talk, he likes to set up a very clean dichotomy. Here's all the things in the Bible, and here's the bad me. Mm-hmm. But sin is far more intertwined than that. And so it isn't God's sanctification of you, his making of the new self. He is going to keep using parts of the old self that will painfully have to die. And it's more like the weeds and the tares, in that they kind of grow together often. So that...
Okay. Well,
does that imagery help?
It does.
And well, let me get back to CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. I was reading some of that in Jonathan Haidt's book, the Coddling of the American Mind, because all of these issues that we're dealing with in the culture war have their connections to pastoral issues as well. For example, victims and victimizing. And Peterson is dead on right in this. If I say to myself, I'm a victim and everyone else is to blame. Now I've made all the deadwood that has to burn everyone else, and I've just sanctified myself. That's a very unhelpful way. So cognitive behavioral therapy means I was listening to a story by a comedian about his use of psychedelics, and Gabor Mate, the guy. So I listened to a video about that, and he was telling the story about when he was young, he had some trauma in his childhood, and what had happened in him was that he had taken on some patterns of behavior that, in a sense, protected him as a child, but now that he's an adult, they need to die. And there's a lot of that going on, that in cognitive behavioral therapy, those are the kinds of things you have to address. And it's very similar in terms of sanctification and mortification. But that process is the reason that...
Well, that's the mystery.
Yes.
That's the mystery. And see, so for me, what happened was I told my psychologist that I didn't want to do CBT anymore. He had to find me another form of therapy.
Okay.
And he did. He found me a form of therapy called acceptance and commitment therapy. It's based on Buddhism.
Oh.
And I read through the literature and I said to him, okay, this actually coincides with my belief system, so I can make this work. Okay. So, you know, Buddhism does come alongside Christianity in certain places.
Yep.
And especially in this place. And I'm not promoting that by any means, but what I'm saying is that it's about accepting your situation, your flaws, your demons. Okay, so this is from a purely psychological viewpoint, but committing to making that path forward. So you're going to the city of God. Okay, you're going to pick up your load, you're going to climb those steps, and you're going to get to the top. And Jesus uses that kind of imagery when he says, my yoke is easy and my burden is light, right? So, and the beautiful thing about acceptance and commitment therapy is it's actually not hard once you understood it, okay? Whereas cognitive behavioral therapy, and I'm using these as kind of juxtaposition, like showing the different approaches to, you know, sanctification, I guess, is that what you call it?
Yep.
You know, so the cognitive behavioral therapy is the pogo stick, right? It's the you know, and I'm sorry, you know, excuse me, crash, bang, boom, and trial and error and failure, and people, you know, like that's a horrible feeling, right, when you fail. And whereas acceptance and commitment therapy is, okay, I'm going to pick up this load, and me and all my garbage, we're all going to go together, and I'm not going to care what they say to me. They can say whatever they want, because the theory with acceptance and commitment therapy is that if you engage with all these voices, all these demons, all these, you know, distorted thoughts or whatever, then you actually you're pulling over and you're not going anywhere. Okay. Right? You've turned around and you've engaged and you're not moving forward.
Right.
So they have this little image. There's actually, I think, a little YouTube video about it just to help people understand the concept, where you're on a bus, you're driving the bus, you know, and you're headed for Value Mountain. And so if you just tell them all, listen, you can talk all you want. You can do anything. You can say anything. It's not going to bother me because I'm driving here. I'm going here. And it disarms them. It actually like will disarm your thought processes. And that can be, it's not identical, but there's something to that in the Christian life, for me anyway, where I can, because a lot of people, you know, I grew up around a lot of Christians, and a lot of Christians beat themselves up because they're not the best person that they could be, right? And we could go on about this for a long time. Bob Dylan says in one of his songs, temptation's not an easy game, and I'm giving the devil rein. But sin, you see, I've got no choice. It runs in my veins. And this is the thing that I think is so true. It's like it's a disease, sin. It isn't an act. It's not like I hit my sister, so I'm a sinner, or I watch porn and that makes me a sinner. It's a disease, right? And when God created Adam and Eve, he created them in his image. And he walked with them in the cool of the evening, and he fellowshiped with them in Genesis. So this is getting back to the beginning. And everything was cool, right? Between God and man. So humanity was not a problem. You know, like our humanness wasn't a problem. It was when that sin entered through Adam. You know, which was actually just an independent move, right? It was independence from God, and then the relationship was broken. And so I think that Jordan Peterson is making that distinction somehow.
What
for
distinction?
People. It's that it's okay. God made you human. He knows your failings, right? And you don't have to jump around on a pogo stick. You just have to pick up the load and move forward, right? You got to keep moving forward.
There are times, there are times when you do wind up on a pogo stick, and when you look at, especially when you look at say someone who is trying to get sober. I mean, that for them, I think probably often feels like it. So,
of course,
yeah, it's the path.
It's not to say that you don't try,
Right.
It's not to say that you never get up in the morning and try to be
Right.
It's like, but there is something about this identity, like, we're told in the scriptures that we are everything that Christ is, we are. Everything that he has, we have. And how many people actually acknowledge that first thing in the morning, and walk in that?
Yep. And that's so right. And so, I just finished again listening to that video again. There's so many things I try to, one of the things I try to get across sometimes is the idea of more than. Because so often we like to handle paradox with balance. And that's sometimes a very helpful way to handle paradox, with balance. But, Tim Keller, for example, has a saying, you are more sinful than you can imagine, and you are more loved than you can believe. But there's also more of those more thans. And one of Jordan Peterson's, which is, you're more powerful than you understand. And you're also more vulnerable than you understand. I mean, all of these more thans are there. And I think part of it is because this gets into, one of the earliest things I picked up from Peterson was the low resolution, high resolution language, which when I heard him use it, I thought, oh, that's genius. That's really helpful. We work in this world with such low resolution. And so then someone makes a discovery, I'm way more powerful than I thought. And it's like, yeah, you are. You're also way more vulnerable than you are. And so that's when we try to get into balance. I'm way more loved by God than I can possibly imagine. Wow. I'm also way more rebellious and sinful than I'm aware of. And so it's kind of the resolution continues to heighten. And sometimes we get glimpses of a more than. And then when we don't see some of the other more thans, things do get a little out of balance. And that's usually, wow, I'm more powerful than I am. And then you go out on that and you discover, wow, I'm also more vulnerable than I thought I was. So life just continues to up the resolution. And I think that's where we get into kind of C.S. Lewis's last battle further up and further in, because you never exhaust. There's God.
No, and that's the beautiful thing. Like that's the thing about going back to the beginning, right? Because as soon as you start going back to the beginning, it gets so deep. It gets, then you're talking about redemption, right? So that's when the story of redemption started. As soon as Adam, as soon as sin entered the world through Adam, it was on. The redemption story was on.
That's right.
And everything else, from that moment in time on, is the redemption story.
And look at the name of the tree. The name of the tree is not tree of the knowledge of evil.
No,
it's tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And so actually, and there's ancient theological debates that surround these issues that are also unresolved, but we don't pay much attention.
I've thought a lot about that whole issue of, why did God put the tree in the garden?
Yeah.
And I remember speaking to a Jewish man who was a Christian, and he taught at a church that was for Jewish Christians.
Yep.
You know, I don't think he was called a rabbi, but anyway, and I asked him that question. He just looked at me and smiled and said, "Good question."
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, it's one of those, you know, it's one of those. But yeah. So one of the things I wanted to ask you about too was, what do you think about the whole idea of this? Like, you've talked about, I can't remember how you phrase it, but you've talked about, you know, the end game being the new heaven and the new earth.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
How do you phrase that?
The reconciliation of heaven and earth.
The reconciliation of heaven and earth. Okay. So do you think that that is somehow symbolic as the reconciliation between man and God?
Yes.
Because
that's it.
Okay. Okay, good.
That is it.
Good. I just did it. Okay, so this idea of God making us human, man, and then us sinning, so disease, you know, this disease enters our line, and it's like a cancer that just putrefies everything, like right down the line, right?
Yep.
Then Jesus comes, and he is a man, but he's also God.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So there is this embodied reconciliation of man and God.
Yes.
And I love that.
Yes.
Okay? Because what that refers back to is the garden.
Yes.
When man and God walk together in the cool of the evening, you know? And that's the thing that just sends chills down my spine.
Yes. Yes.
You know?
That's all built in there. It's all there. That's what Peugeot is so good at, is helping people see, oh yeah, Jesus and the Bible talks in these ways sometimes, and we look at them and we kind of puzzle, but it's all built in there. Jesus is the story.
I know.
It's built into him. But then it's important. He's creation 1.0. He's the reconciliation of heaven and earth. And then in the resurrection, he's creation 2.0. He's the reconciliation. New heavens and new earth come together. I mean, all of those things come together in that story. And
death.
Yes.
Death, which was the consequence of sin entering.
That's right.
Was taken care of. Like that's like it's that redemption story, right? Started then and then found its culmination in Christ, right?
That's right. Yep.
So somehow this whole reconciliation thing, now I'm just going to toss this in here and see what you think. It's like a marriage, right? Which is what the church and Christ are described as, the bride and the bridegroom.
That's right.
And in this marriage, and I think this is the reason that many people seek a partner and a commitment, a lifelong commitment, is a knowing, right? A knowing, a deep sense of belonging. And so that brings me to the verse, right? From Paul, for now we see through a glass darkly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then I shall know even as also I am known.
Yeah.
And to me, that is, we have, I listen to all the conversations, and I listen to Jordan Peterson, and I listen to you, and it's very informative and it's great. I love it. But now we see through a glass darkly, and so there's this moment in time where everyone is going to be known so intimately. It's going to bring about this incredible feeling of being in this marriage, in this reconciled state. It's just glorious, isn't it, Paul?
Yeah. No, that's exactly right. That's yep. It's all there.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
I know.
And that leads off into so many glorious places. And we can just kind of touch it with our imaginations. But, C.S. Lewis deals with some of these things until we have faces. If you've ever read that novel, it's his best novel.
I haven't read that one.
Oh, it's his best novel.
I haven't read that one.
And he actually wrote quite a bit. He kind of co-wrote it with Joy Davidman, which is interesting because she was an
Yeah.
interesting person too. But no, that's exactly right. And it's, it's this Augustinian idea that every taste. So again, the big liberty video of the convocation itself. Note in the Network is a guy who makes videos too. He watches my channel, and sometimes he refers to my videos in his channel. And he made the comment that, when David rushed the stage and said, "Oh God," Node says, well, is he talking about, is it just an exclamation, or is he looking for God through Peterson? That's very Augustinian. That's very right. That's what we're doing. That's what we're looking for, God in beauty and in good food and in the beauty of creation. There's a story, you'll appreciate this, told to me by my father, was told him by his father. My grandfather was pastoring churches in rural areas in the Midwest. Almost all the Dutch immigrants were dairy farmers. So one of his parishioners once asked him if there will be calves in heaven, because he doesn't know anything more beautiful than the eyes of a newborn calf. And and so through those eyes, in a sense, he begins to see God. And the world is full of his glory. And no, that's right. All those things come together.
Everything. And it all always leads back to this Genesis.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's just, it's such a complete package that it's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
Like, because it doesn't stop.
Yeah.
And then there's the whole idea of, in you and through you and to you and,
Yes. Yes.
So it's just fantastic, actually. And Jordan Peterson has actually helped me to see it from a different angle, I guess.
Yep.
Yep. To say, okay, yes, I understand this idea of death and resurrection and burning off the dead wood and carrying your load, and being responsible. Those are, or should be, consequences of you knowing who you are. Kind of reminds me of the characters in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. They all had to learn to be royalty.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
They had to learn that they were kings and queens.
Yes. Yes.
And take on that position,
Yes. Yes.
And as Christians, we have to really believe that about ourselves,
Yes. Yes.
And
that's where the Edmund story is so precious, because Lucy's the golden child. Susan, what happened with Susan? Peter is the high king, but Edmund is the rebel. And Aslan. So I just, in the video I talked about, I introduced Leo Bebb and the Book of Bebb. I don't know if you've ever read Frederick Buechner.
No. No.
But Leo Bebb comes in Frederick Buechner's first of 4 novels called Lion Country, and he's running a diploma mill, but he goes to this one park where there's all these lions out there, and Aslan, of course, is the great lion, and Aslan isn't in Leo Bebb, but it comes together in that the great lion allows himself to be sacrificed, for Edmund. And
I know it's beautiful.
Yeah,
it's beautiful. It's beautiful, and it's all all that power that's found in that truth is ours. And this is the thing, I think, that what Jordan Peterson is helping people with is giving them that you can be the hero. You can do this. You can carry that load. You can be, the high king and the queen, right? This is your true calling. And so it's great. And as far as people going from atheism to God, it's kind of like my story. It's like, you can't read the Bible as a textbook, right? You put a toe over, and either you recoil in horror because
Yeah.
you've just encountered the living God,
Yeah.
or you get sucked right in like a vacuum cleaner,
Yeah.
like it's just, I wanted to read a quick quote. Is our time almost up?
Yeah. No, we're okay.
Okay.
I don't have a call after you, so I've got some flexibility.
Okay. I have this quote. I wrote it years ago in this little book here, and you'll probably recognize it's from Miracles. C.S. Lewis wrote this: "Look out, we cry, it's alive, and therefore this is the very point at which so many draw back. I would have done so myself if I could, and proceed no further with Christianity. An impersonal God, well and good. A subjective God of beauty, truth, and goodness inside our own heads, better still. A formless life force surging through us, a vast power we can tap, best of all. But God himself, alive, pulling at the other end of the cord, perhaps approaching at an infinite speed. The hunter, the king, the husband, that is quite another matter.
That's right.
There comes a moment when the children who have been playing at burglars hush suddenly. Was that real footsteps in the hall? There comes a moment when people who have been dabbling in religion suddenly draw back, supposing we really found him. We never knew. We never meant it to come to that. Worse still, supposing he had found us.
Yeah.
So it is a sort of Rubicon. One goes across or not. But if one does, there is no matter of security against miracles.
That's right.
One may be in for anything.
That's right.
And I think that's what's happening to these people.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
they're playing, they're dipping that little cord and see if they get a tug back. And oh my God, they do.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right. Peterson, again, in the Liberty video, I just finished the video on this, and he repeats the same story that he told in the Sam Harris video of the prayer story. Well, if you sit on the edge of your bed and you really mean it, and you something will talk back, it's like, yeah, that's right. Something will. You put that line in the water, be prepared for what might be coming out of the water. And that's converting is not like making a decision on a sensible used car. No. Converting is more like falling in love. I mean, it's
absolutely that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It takes you. And I love your story where, I'm going to read the Bible, because whoa, 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 whoa. And then other people will come to me and say, well, I read the Bible and it didn't take. And it's like, well, again, God number one and God number two. God number two is this living God. And you can look for him and you can find stuff, sure. But he's not, that's the difference between pantheism. Pantheism is everything is passive.
Right.
This is an active agent, living being who can come after you. Then what? And
right.
Yeah. And then suddenly our pride, our self-sufficiency, then we are the bride of Christ. And
that's right.
Yeah. And we're just, don't want it.
Yeah. I hope that, if anybody watches this, that they're not frightened off from, this kind of conversation about God, because it's really the adventure of a lifetime to be in relationship with God. Yeah. I was reading Hebrews 11 because I was thinking about this whole knowing idea, and I don't think we have time to get into it, but maybe we could another time. One of the things, there's just a little short blip in the Old Testament about Enoch, and Enoch was, he didn't even live that long, apparently. He was 300 when he died?
Yeah.
Everybody else was
mere youth.
50. The teenager.
That's right.
But somehow he pleased God, and he was, according to the New Testament, he was just taken. He wasn't. He didn't die.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like there wasn't any real law when Enoch lived, was there?
Not that we know of. Those
No.
early chapters of Genesis are so evocative rather than descriptive and detail oriented.
I've just thought about it from a purely, let's say, the idea that Enoch could please God so much that he wouldn't die. And yet there were no laws. Okay. He couldn't fulfill anything.
Yeah.
Right. He was just a man who was in a relationship with God, with the living God. And the relationship was so great. And he's listed in Hebrews 11 as a great man of faith.
Yeah.
And so then you have to wonder, well, what is faith? Is faith knowing God? Is that what it is? Like really, like knowing him as your husband, as your king, as, like this knowing, is that what faith is? Like you can't, another quick example is Job. So Job was tested, right? God allowed him to be tested. And I thought a lot about it. And I thought, Job God said, yeah, go ahead. It'll work. He's not gonna cash in his chips on me, And Job is also listed as a great man of faith in Hebrews 11.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, if you know somebody really well, you know them so deeply and so well that people come along and tell you stories about them, and it must be this and it must be that's the reason that they're treating you like this. You would actually say no, because I know them, right? And they would never do that. That wouldn't be their reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that that's the same for Job. He knew God so intimately that he couldn't deny him. How could he? It would be like denying your mother or, some living thing that you've had a relationship with, right? You just, so.
You've been married to your husband for 33 years. You know what you can trust him for, and you know what you can't trust him with. Am I right?
I didn't think I could trust him. Oh, yeah. I didn't think I could trust him with lambs, but he did really great.
Well, you're not done together, so.
Yeah.
But that's right. And Hebrews 11 gives this contrast of faith and seeing. And so faith is this grasping onto what we don't see, and also, so the crazy thing, and this is where again I come, so how to talk about the Peterson stuff, and where does the resurrection fit in? It comes into these questions of, let's say, so Abraham, the Abraham story too. God says, I'm going to make you a great nation. Abraham's like, great, this is what I've been waiting for. And then nothing. God strings him along for 25 years. He's already 75. And his wife is already 60. Becomes 95. And and then, all these ways that Abraham tries to do it himself. And God's like, nope. Yeah. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it in just the way you say I can't do it, which is through your old wife. And then he does all that, and we have Isaac, and then kids, 13 or whatever, take your son, your only son, to a mountain I'm going to show you. It's like,
I know.
And all the way up the mountain, build the altar, the whole 9 yards, raise the knife, and God says, now I know. And it's like, what?
Yeah.
I mean,
I've been reading Søren Kierkegaard's Fear and Trembling.
Oh.
Have you ever looked at it?
No, I've never read it.
Okay, well, it's all about Abraham. And in the very beginning, he gives, like, I don't know how many, 6 or 7 different versions of Abraham's story. Just from a novelist would write, right? How Abraham felt when he got up, and how what Isaac felt, and what they talked about, or if they talked. And
Yeah.
You know, so it's a different scenario. Like he just does these little scenarios, you know,
Yeah.
and he takes you through every human conception of what it must have felt like for Abraham to go and why it made him such a great man of faith. And I think one of the main points that he makes in it is not necessarily that he knew God would either raise him from the dead or, you know, God's going to fix it, whatever happens. It was just that he trusted God, period.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And that kind of trust, I mean, I never thought about it until I read that, but that kind of trust is not very common. No.
Because we have so few who are trustworthy at that level.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
So then you get to the hierarchies. Okay, your husband, and so, you know, if something were to happen to you, would he be there for you? And, you know, in a relationship, you work through these things, and of course, that's why betrayal, as Peterson says, is such a powerful thing, because it is trust betrayed, and
broken.
And that's why I love the description in 1 Corinthians 11 of the Lord's Supper on the night he was betrayed. I mean, it's just,
I know.
On the night he was betrayed, he took bread and he broke it. And he said, this is my body given for you. And it's like, oh.
I know.
and so, you know, then swinging back to the Peterson thing. One of the things that Peterson, I think, has done is the church had kind of a black and white coloring book outlines of things. And for some things, Peterson has taken in the colors and made it colorful. So now, post Peterson, when I think about betrayal, I see it more vividly than I did before Peterson. I understand it at a different level. And so much of Peterson's contributions have been in that way, which is really interesting. So,
and also just this innate sense of God, like that we carry with us, right? We have this. It's like we have all these little receptors out. We don't even know we have them, and when we come in contact with certain things, like this whole awe thing, right?
Yeah.
How awe is a physical sensation, and how, you know, it's like we get a little plugged into God for a minute, you know.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Time to go.
True. Well, thank you, Shari. Thank you so much for reaching
it was
out.
really nice. Yeah, it was great.
And I'll send you the copy of this, and you can look at it and decide if you're comfortable having it posted. And
okay, that sounds good.
And you know, it's always I don't want to post anything that people are like, well, I don't know. It's like, no, you gotta be sure. And and a lot of people say no, which is totally fine. But again, the part of the channel that has been really fun have been people have a natural curiosity. Who else is watching Jordan Peterson? We're all isolated here in YouTube land, unlike in a church where you look down the aisles and after the service shake someone's hand and introduce yourself and hear their story. But you don't get that in YouTube land. So
yeah, unfortunately not.
No.
But it's been really fabulous listening to everybody's different stories and seeing their journeys, and it's encouraging.
Yeah. It really is.
There's a lot of good things happening out there, right?
Yeah, there are. So thank you, Shari, and good talking to you. And I will send this to you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Paul.
Okay. Good luck with the lambs.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye. Yes, you're back. Well, we posted the last conversation. Did you find that went well for you to share it, and you read comments and interacted with folks?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I enjoyed. I did interact a little bit with some people, and actually, I've been reading Julian's blog, Coffee with Kierkegaard. Can highly recommend it. And yeah, it was nice. It was nice to be able to share And so I'm back sharing again. I mean, I am sharing.
Sherry sharing.
Yeah.
Well, how did the lambing go? Did that go well?
Oh, it went well. Yeah, everything's done with the lambing. And I was talking to my sister on the phone just a few minutes ago, and I looked out my window, and I have one goat. I have goats as well, and I have one goat that's been a kid.
Oh.
I said to her, "What's with having a conversation with Paul Vanderplay and babies being born?"
Well, I've had 5, so fertility must surround me. And there's actually a dream that a Haitian woman had about me once that she came to me.
I really tell that story actually.
Yeah. So maybe I'm just fruitful in that way.
Yeah. Well, everything comes in its good time, and she'll be all right. She's an old hat, so I don't have to worry about her.
Okay. So what's on your list for today?
Well, I re-listened. I watched the video again when you sent it to me, and I thought that I said a lot of things because I had a lot of things to say. Like I just had all this stuff all bound up, and somehow there wasn't. I mean, it was fine. I was happy with the conversation, but there wasn't a lot of context because I have a story, right?
Mm-hmm.
My life is, a story in which those ideas and thoughts and concerns developed. And so I don't know, I just thought it might be fun to put a little bit of context to some of the ideas that I find interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a verse here that actually my sister referred me to, and I thought it was really appropriate because it says, it's in Revelation 12:11. They have conquered him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. Mm-hmm. And they did not love their lives so as to shy away from death. But the part that I thought was good was the by the word of their testimony, and in light of the Jordan Peterson thing, the story is so important, like people really appreciate the narrative, and it helps to cement the truth, but it also is a place where you find truth, and Jesus spoke in and the truths were there. Somehow the roots of those truths seem deepened in a story,
Well, so in one of my videos, I mentioned Leslie Newbegin and his observation. So Leslie Newbegin was a Brit who went to India as a young man to be a missionary, spent his entire career in India, came back to Britain, and I think he had left in the 30s and come back in the 80s. And, the place he returned to was nothing like the place he left religiously. And so I quoted something from one of his books. I don't know if I have my Newbegin section here, but basically a local congregation, the local church is the hermeneutic of the gospel. And what that means is very much what's in that Revelation passage about it's the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony, because the blood of the Lamb is just kind of out there, theoretical, it's a story, but the word of the testimony and the testimony of the people, of the local people, is what make it real. And suddenly everything connects, and there's real power. People change, and the gospel, then the word becomes flesh in the midst, in time and space, in a community with an address, with a zip code, with real people and real names and real stories and all of that. And so that's very true and very right.
Yeah, and I mean, the first part of the verse says they have conquered him, and they're referring to Satan. The verse is referring to Satan,
sure.
So it's pretty powerful, the word of the testimony, right? And the blood of the Lamb, of course. But
well, I don't have Revelation open in front of me, but chapter 12, isn't that the dragon and the woman? Yeah. And she gives, she's about to give birth, and the dragon's going to eat the child. And no, I just started preaching. I'm going to be spending a number of weeks in Revelation at our 11 o'clock service. And during seasons, I tend to follow at least somewhat the lectionary texts. And so I saw that the New Testament readings are in Revelation. So I thought I'd preach on those, because the book of Revelation is one of my favorite books in the Bible. It's an astounding book, but it's so hard and complicated. So it's so much fun.
Yeah. And it's funny, because last time we spoke, I was talking about Genesis, and now I'm starting out with Revelation. And that's really how I'm like that. I like the beginning of the book and the end of the book and all stuff in the middle. It's like, it's jam-packed in there, but it's, the story really is Genesis and Revelation, that's, for me anyway, it is. Yeah. But, I thought I'd share a little bit about my journey, how God, worked his way into my life.
Okay.
I did mention before that I wasn't raised in a Christian home. My mother's mother was a Christian, and my mother was a Christian. My father was not. And we attempted, they did attempt some church going moments, and so I was exposed to a little bit of United Church Sunday School here and Baptist Church, something or other there, but it wasn't very consistent. And, so anyway, I was about 14 years old. My father had become a believer, and they started attending church pretty regularly. But I was well on my way to having my own identity and my own interests, and church wasn't one of them for me at the time. And I was actually quite a rebellious person. So I had some bad habits. I was into drugs and, stuff like that at a young age. And my mother asked me one day if I wanted to go shopping with her for some clothes. And I thought, wow, that would be great. Let's do that. And so we jumped in the car, and she drove me to the local church. And there were all these buses parked out there. And she opened the trunk and pulled out my suitcase and said, "You're going to Bible camp for the summer." And so I was very, very upset, of course. But this was their attempt at, salvaging what they could.
Yeah.
And so I remember sitting in the bus, and I was looking out the bus window and thinking, these people are going to be so sorry they ever met me. They're going to send me home,
Yeah.
And I don't remember a whole lot about the whole Bible camp stay, except for one very important moment in my life. And I guess they had a regular campfire every evening, and people would sit and talk and sing songs and, stuff like that. So I was sitting at this campfire, and I was on my own. I didn't want to be friends with anybody. I really didn't want to be there. And I had my Bible. I had a Bible that my mother gave me, and it was sitting on my lap. And I had it because we had to bring it with us. And it was dark, and I looked down at the Bible, and the fire was flickering on the lettering, the gold lettering that said Holy Bible, right? And I don't know why I remember that, but somehow it jarred me, and I just thought, oh, this is so stupid. I'm getting out of here. I don't want to sit here any longer. And I got up from the campfire, and I walked along the beach. It was on a lake. And suddenly I was thrown to the ground, literally. So I'm at this, very conservative Bible camp, Brethren Bible camp. And I get thrown to the ground, and I'm face first in the sand, and basically eating sand. And I could feel this heavy weight on my back, and all I could, I couldn't audibly hear anything, but but I had this very strong sensation that God was saying to me, I love you. I love you. Right? And I was wriggling and trying to get up, and I couldn't get up. And this weight was just pushing me down, and I was trying to crawl in the sand, and I was being pushed down. And then finally I struggled up to my knees, and at that point this weight lifted. But the whole time the love of God was incredibly powerful. Like I could feel it. I knew that that's what he was saying to me, and I was weeping. Like I was weeping. And I got up and I walked down the beach, and I met a woman who was a counselor there, and she asked me if I was okay, and I didn't talk to her. I just kept walking and crying, and that was that. That was it. I didn't convert, you know. I didn't suddenly jump up and say I'm saved or anything. I didn't even tell anyone, actually. I think I told my husband about this maybe a month ago for the first time.
Wow.
And yeah, and because I'm not a sensationalist, you know, like I'm not, those kinds of things I think are not things that can be replicated or should be replicated. And
we're going to send you to this camp. We're going to throw you on the ground. We're going to make you crawl in the sand. That'll do it. And you're going to get up and be a Christian. Yeah, I haven't seen that technique work with a lot of people. So
no,
not replicatable.
That's right. But you know, when Jordan Peterson referenced Israel meaning wrestling with God, that whole experience came back to my mind as this moment in time where I really didn't want to be a recipient of God's love. I didn't want it. I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to know God. I had my own agenda, you know, and I wasn't going to play ball with my parents or anybody else for that matter. So,
well, you know,
yeah, it was a real.
I'm so glad you shared this story because, and I've made this point in a number of my videos, people share the stories you told me, while it's unique to you, is not categorically different from other stories other people have told me about similar events in their lives, especially events surrounding what would become part of the process of conversion. And as a pastor, people are willing to share these kinds of stories with me, but by virtue of our secular society, there's a degree of embarrassment about it because it's weird. These things are not supposed to happen. And so nobody talks about them. Only certain kinds of people talk about them. But the kinds of people who have told me stories like what you just told me these are people with positions. They're trusted in society. They have credibility. Most of them are not Pentecostal in any way. They haven't had a lot of experiences like this, but something happened in a moment that turned their life around. And it's inexplicable. Although at the same time, it's, well, you tripped, or, I mean, someone, if they wanted to really hard to just kind of dismiss the story, they could make up a story to dismiss it. But nothing you've told me here surprises me at all, because I've heard many other people tell me similar things. Each story unique, but you know, similar to what you just told me.
Yeah, and it's this, you know, wrestling idea too, right? Like I really latched on to that. I mean, I knew that Israel meant that, you know, but I had forgotten. And then, you know, with the listening to Jordan Peterson and thinking about my life, because my life has been very complicated. It's been difficult. I've struggled with depression. I've struggled with anxiety, you know, I've almost lost my marriage. You know, there's been a lot of difficulties. But when I said in the last conversation that being in a relationship with God is the adventure of a lifetime, it is the Narnia Chronicles, it isn't all, sunshine and rainbows, right? but there is this deep sense of knowing when you come into that relationship with God, there's a deep sense of knowing that he's got you, I've got you, and we're going to get through this, So I was struggling with the whole, like, once I became a Christian, I didn't tell anybody either. So I'm a Christian. I remember I told you the story of reading the Bible as a textbook. And I came into this relationship with God and through, just falling in love with Jesus. But I didn't want to tell anybody. And it wasn't necessarily because I didn't want to be accountable to anyone. It was because I wanted it to be real. I didn't want it to get, diluted with other people's ideas of what it should be, or theology or doctrinal differences, or I just wanted to keep it the way it was. It was really intimate and it was real, and I just, wanted it to be that way. And I was struggling with some things, some accountability things, about how I should live my life, and praying about those things. And I had a dream. So this was another pivotal moment, for me. And I dreamt that I was walking down this main street of a town, but I wasn't alone. I was in a crowd, and everybody was shoulder to shoulder, just jam-packed on this street. And they were all walking in the same direction, right? Just like jammed. And inside of the little alcoves of the stores along the street were these big, burly, bouncer type guys. They were just watching the crowd, and scanning the crowd. So I'm in this crowd and I'm just, shuffling along with everyone. And I hear this, "Psst, Shari," and I look over. And I'm scared to look over even, because everyone's facing the same direction. They're all walking in the same direction. And I look over and I see these angels, these two angels standing in this alcove of the store. And they go, "Come here." And I'm like, I'm going to get over there. And I squeeze my way through. I join them in the alcove, and we're kind of hidden from view. And they said, "Look, you've got to walk the other way." And I said, "What? I can't. If I walk the other way, they're going to see me right away. Like, I'll be the only person, right? And how am I going to get through that crowd? Like, that's going to be brutal." And they said, "Yeah, we know it's going to be hard, and we'll do what we can to help you out." So there weren't any like fabulous promises or anything, right? And I said, "Okay." And I went out into the crowd and I started pushing. And these guys and these bouncers, they all went, and noticed me. And then I woke up, and that was my dream. So I felt like, okay, this is what I have to do. I have to do the thing that's different, whatever it is, and I have a feeling you understand that, because just by nature of your channel, it's like I'm gonna have a YouTube channel.
I'm going to have the YouTube channel. I'm going to have the Freddie and Paul show. I'm going to have 2 hours of rambling about Jordan Peterson. I'm going to have total strangers I don't know put them on my channel and tell their stories. And who knows what we'll talk about. Yep, there it is.
I know. And that's when, pardon the cliche, but that's when you let go and let God. Yeah. And that's what I mean about the adventure of a lifetime. And the dream depicts it so well, because it's like it's not gonna be easy. You're gonna be pushing against the crowd. There's gonna be people, standing in the sidelines who think, get back in line, And God doesn't make any promises, And like in this verse that I read in the beginning, and they did not love their lives so as to shy away from death.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
you know, I'm not going out and doing things just so that I can be martyred,
right?
You know, or, you know, I'm not trying to turn the world upside down on its head or anything like that. But I think that, you know, being in this life, in this Christian life, it's not what it seems, or it's not always what we think it should be, or like Jordan Peterson puts it so well, he just says the world is a very strange place, you know, and God is good, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. I don't know where to go from here.
That's a great dream. That's a great dream.
Yeah. It was a great dream.
You know, one of the things, I don't know if it was with you that I said it, but, you know, God is always more than. And I just caught a little bit, Bishop Barron and Jordan Peterson talked. They had a conversation, and they had Bishop Barron's outfit put out a little teaser video where they had some of Bishop Barron's hot takes and a few clips from the conversation. And, you know, Peterson begins by talking about why he doesn't want to say he believes, because if he says he believes, then there's this huge weight of accountability that is on him, and then he's going to have to, you know, in kind of his Petersonian way, he places this heavy burden on himself, and he's afraid he won't be able to hold up under the burden. Well, there's, you know, and Bishop Barron comes back and says, well, that's, you know, respect that. And that's true. And it is true.
It is.
But the other side is also true, that his yoke is easy and his burden is light. Yeah. Because and I love your dream because it illustrates and it imagines the choice. And so the choice is continue moving with the crowd, which just as you lay out the dream, no one wants to be doing that for very real reasons, but reasons that are hard to actually express. So then get out of the crowd and go the other way. And you know, that's crazy, but that's exactly kind of the choice. And you know, even the manifestation that you had on the beach. Now, I would dare bet that, so you had this experience, you didn't, you know, and conversion is like this. People, I hate the way Christians so often make such bad art, where, you know, you have this experience, then suddenly your whole life is different. I mean, you were still that kid who was resentful against your parents for sending you to Bible camp, and, you know, irritated by the other people there. And I would imagine, but over time, so this event then is in your life, and it's in your memory, and it's back there, and then things continue to start to change, and slowly, you know, you don't let anybody know that you're a Christian, but bit by bit by bit, and that is for many, many people the path, and they get frustrated. So, you know, I talk to people on the channel, and they're like, well, I've started doing these things, and I'm not going to abandon this road that I'm on, but I don't really believe yet, or at all, and I don't know. And it's like, well, that's right. Let's keep going.
I know. I remember listening to a conversation you had with Job, and he said, he interrupted you at one point and said, how do you get there, Paul? How do you get to Lord Jesus?
Yeah.
Right. And that, I think that goes back to the knowing thing, like that I was talking about before too, is, well, you can say that because you know he's the Lord, you know, and you can only know that when you enter that relationship. But like that moment on the beach, and between the moment on the beach and the time that I started to read the Bible as a textbook, I left home. I hitchhiked from coast to coast as a 17-year-old kid. I lived homeless. I was doing drugs. Like, it was not a long time now, when I look back on
When
my
you
life.
look back on it now, but then, yeah.
But then, and then I got pregnant, and that kind of stopped me in my tracks, right? Thank God. Yeah. Because I don't know where I would have ended up, really.
Yeah.
And, but, I say that, but at the same time, I know that God had a plan for me. He told me when I was 14, he slammed me face down into the sand and said, I love you, and I'm not going to let you go, And I wrestled with him really hard.
Yeah.
And I might get a little emotional, but that's okay.
It can't be a Jordan Peterson conversation without somebody, breaking up a little bit or.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Join the club, right?
That's right. I got the first installment from the talks that I did in Australia, and and I did at one moment I started talking about my father's ministry, and I find myself starting to break up. It's like, oh, now I'm gonna do it.
Yeah. Well, that's just a really good indicator that it's real.
Yeah.
Yeah. When it moves you like that. When I've seen Jordan Peterson choke up, it's always at those moments when he knows that he's being used by God, in my opinion. Okay.
Yeah.
When he realizes that this is there's a bigger purpose. He's an instrument.
Yeah.
And I think he knows that. That's when he gets choked up, because he is a humble man, actually. I think he really is. And his desire to that this thing just doesn't go sideways, that it, that it stays where it should be, is a real example of his humility too. Like he's not out for the fame and the fortune. He's just doing something that he can't say no to it.
Yeah.
He's driven,
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when he does get choked up, to me that's like the what do you call the litmus test, of reality.
Yeah. So you went hitchhiking, and so what were some of the other milestones in terms of changing? Your pregnancy, obviously, I mean, that will sober you up, because suddenly, for whatever rebellion you did against your parents, once you're faced with the fact that this other little creature that you love for some mysterious reason now is depending on you, well, that sobers a lot of people up, pretty quickly.
Oh, yeah, that's one of the reasons that I don't agree with abortion, because as difficult as it is to be 19 years old, and I didn't want to have a baby. I had great plans to continue partying and doing my thing, let alone, some people want to go to college and get a career. That was the farthest thing from my mind. But children are a blessing, and they really are,
Yeah.
And we don't know what that blessing is until we receive it.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Yeah. So I had my daughter, and I started to realize in, reading the scriptures and moving in this relationship with Jesus and not telling anybody, like seriously not telling anybody. My sister would say, do you mind if I do my devotions out loud? She was trying to convert me still. And I was like, I said, you know what? I really mind.
Sounds like you're still close to your sister, though.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, we are very close. Yeah. So I decided that I needed to know what I believe, because I had been involved in church, for a short period of time, been listening to lots of sermons, and I found myself repeating things that people were telling me, but it wasn't original. It wasn't my idea. It wasn't something that I had thought through. And so I went to, I don't know if you're familiar with Cape and Ray, Major Ian Thomas. He wrote a book called The Saving Life of Christ. And he established these, it's not really a Bible school, it's more like a 1-year communal living and biblical lectures, and then they have visiting teachers that come in, and they've got them all over the world.
Oh, I've never heard of it.
And no, Cape and Ray. It's called Cape and Ray Bible School. I think it's called Bible School. It started in Cape and Ray Hall in England, and then it got established India, Canada, Switzerland, Austria, all over the world. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure when he started it, but it kind of started out like Liberty, where it's this, communal learning and living thing. So I did that for a year, and
with your daughter.
With my daughter, yeah.
Okay.
Took my daughter with me, and that's where I met my husband, actually.
Oh wow!
And then what happened at the school while I was there was the John Wimber thing happened. Okay, so
you better explain that. Most of the people listening to this probably don't know who John Wimber is, or what a very interesting.
You could probably explain it better than me.
Well, John Wimber was, I don't know the story real well, he was a Presbyterian basically, and he began to have these experiences and starts pursuing experiences of healing, of miraculous healing, deliverance, and he began to write books on this, and he founded a movement that grew into what would become at least part of the Vineyard Church movement, which is a charismatic evangelical, but still with some reformed theology in their DNA still. And Vineyard churches is a significant. I don't know how many of them there are, how large they are. But and then John taught a Signs and Wonders course at Fuller Theological Seminary in California, which Lou Smedes. That was a place that some CRC notables went. Lou Smedes went there first. Eventually, Richard Mao would go there. But Lou Smedes wrote a very interesting little book, Should We Celebrate a Miracle? Because John Wimber was holding this class basically teaching seminarians how to facilitate ministry of the miraculous in their churches. And that you can find these kinds of things today, notably Bethel Church in Reading, which is a couple hours north of us. They do a lot of that. But this was happening in Fuller Theological Seminary, which is one of the flagship evangelical seminaries in North America. And there was a very big debate about whether it was appropriate to do this kind of instruction and laboratory in a seminary context. And that actually gets into questions of, in the 19th century, theology, along with everything else, tried to take on sort of a science-y feel to it. So now we're going to have the science of miracles. And some people had some question whether this is, it's like having the science of your spouse. And in some ways you get to depersonalize your spouse. And if you discover that your spouse is, trying to run science on you, you might say, hey, cut it out. I'm your spouse. I'm not a lab rat. And so the fear was turning God into a lab rat in that movement. So it's a John Wimber, and John Wimber, interestingly enough, went on to die. And, so here's a guy who's doing healing and facilitating healing, and he himself, he can't heal himself, and those around him aren't able to heal him. So this is, these are such complex conversations within the Christian realm about miracles and how to live with them and what they are and all of that. But John Wimber's right there at the center of it. So there's a little introduction to John Wimber.
Thanks for that.
So how did you intersect with this whole movement, Signs and Wonders?
It came in a wave, okay, like a huge wave. And one of the resident lecturers, he introduced it. So his name was Ken Blue, and he he was a psychologist actually, and he got right into the whole movement, the Vineyard movement. So it got introduced into the school, and I don't want to really spend too much time on it, but I went there saying, okay, Lord, I need to know what I believe. And then I got confronted with this whole idea, right? A totally new idea for me. And it didn't really mesh with the school either, I have to say. So the school itself wasn't charismatic, and so it was new to everyone. And everybody kind of got into it, you know. And I decided to kind of step back and just watch the goings on. And I mean, that's kind of how I am anyways. You know, like I said, I didn't tell anyone I got saved, right? I didn't tell anyone I was a Christian, even in my family. So I just stepped back and I watched, and I read my Bible like crazy. I just read it and read it and read it. And I felt like if there's anything to this thing, it will match up with what I'm reading, you know. And so another pivotal moment for me was I went to a healing seminar at a local town that was hosted by Ken Blue, right? One of the lecturers from the school, and we all went there, and it was in a recreation center. And so I'm watching all these people standing up, you know, and getting healed, or, you know, people were prophesying that certain people were in the crowd and that they had this and that, and they should come forward. And everybody was, you know, crying and moaning and carrying on. I don't mean to sound disrespectful, but really that's what it was.
Yeah. Oh, that's what happened in a number of these places.
Yeah, and the doors to the room that we were in were open. And across the hall from where we were was a square dance club of senior citizens. And they had just finished their lessons, and they were coming out. And they were all dressed in their square dance clothes, right? And they were laughing and talking, and it was just loud. And and this thought came to my mind: if somebody gets up and closes the door, I'm out of here. I'm done with this. Because to me, what I saw was basically the world going to hell in a handbasket, and all these Christians worrying about all their little problems, right? And I mean, I had a world of problems. I had a little girl. I didn't have a job. I was already in debt, you know, but I just knew that God was bigger than my problems. And I also understood the idea of suffering, you know. I think that suffering is, suffering is painful, right? But pain is an indicator of something. And without pain, we'd be dead. We'd be dead sooner than later.
Right.
And I'm a firm believer in the idea that we are purified through suffering. It makes us better people, you know, in general. And so Paul says, rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I say rejoice. And there's no clause except for when, you know, your leg hurts or something. You know, it's always. And I've taken opportunities when I've been in serious pain and rejoiced. And it's made a world of difference because it reminds me of who's in control of my life, right? And that idea that I've got you, you know, I love you. And I was listening to your conversation with Andrew this morning, and he mentioned in there how he appreciated the fact that Jordan Peterson says, I don't know. There's, you know, things that I don't know. And you say the same thing. And I commend you for that, because a lot of Christians think that they have to have all the answers, you know, And I think that all we really need to know, and I've heard you say this actually, is that God is good.
Yeah.
He's good.
Yeah.
That's it. You know, that's all we need to know. And I mean, I have faced death, and wasn't sure if I was going to talk about this, and it'll probably get me all teary, but I had in 2007, I had a brain injury. I had a car accident and I suffered a brain injury. And basically I lost my ability to think. I lost my ability to do a lot of things. I couldn't remember anything. I became very anxious because of the loss of those, you know, what do you call those abilities? And a year, you know, I suffered with it for a year before I was diagnosed. And so I didn't really know what was happening to me. And a year into it, I tried to commit suicide. So, and I was almost successful. And that was another pivotal moment in my life. So I took a large handful of pills, and I crawled into bed, and I started to say the Psalm 23 out loud. And God crawled into bed with me, and he said, "This is not what I had planned for you." But he said, "But I know how hard it is. I know it's hard, and I'm here." And I survived, and thank God I did, you know. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I made it through that. Mm-hmm. And my life has never been better, actually. Mm. It's never been better. Mm. But that moment was when I realized that he does know our suffering. And it hurts him, you know? Mm-hmm. It hurts him. Mm-hmm. And he is there. Mm-hmm. But he isn't going to wipe it away. And it will make us a better person. Yeah. And it has done for me. And when I started watching Jordan Peterson, I could relate to him because I know he's also suffered with depression and anxiety. And, you know, obviously he's had autoimmune problems and didn't feel like he could get up and get his job done. But, you know, he did it. He did it. He pushed through it. And it was in that suffering that he learned those things that he learned. It was in that suffering that he went on that quest to find out how to alleviate that suffering, right? And that's what suffering to me is. It's horrible, and I don't recommend it. You know, it's not like I think people should go out and try to find ways to suffer. I mean, life will deliver that without asking for it. Right, you know. Right. But rejoice in the Lord always, because it will take you to places that you never thought that you would go. Yeah. You know.
Yep. And that is what our lives are like. I was listening to Vervaeke did another one last week, and he was talking about, you know, the I forget how he phrased it, the being versus having, and the, you know, we try to have, and I'm working on some other videos in my head, found another interesting commentator, just got some interesting comments on Jordan Peterson stuff that I'm going to weave into some of my videos. But we are in the midst of a culture that imagines that it imagines on one hand that we know what we want and what we need in order to arrive at heaven, let's use that word, and that arriving there is we get there by controlling and having and then delivering and securing all of these things. And that is such, to me, a laughable, ridiculous quest if anybody has lived any number of decades, because life is not like that. If you would have asked your teenage self what the good life was, now you look back on it and you think, I didn't know anything. And Lord, save me from my teenage self. If that's the self I'd have to be locked into for the rest of my life. And so he pushes you into the sand, and it's like, well, what kind of, what kind of God would push a girl into the sand at Bible camp? Well, one who loves her. And yet you get pregnant and have to work things out, and there's an accident and a suicide attempt, and well, what kind of a God would allow your story to unfold like that? Well, it's a God who knows how to write amazing stories, and conquered by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony, and they did not love their lives so as to shy away from death. There it is, baby. And we read it and we think, no, but I wanted that something that was safe and secure. But Dostoevsky has it right. People get into that place and they torpedo it because it's meaning that So we have a couple more minutes. Any last things you want to? Yeah, the time goes fast.
I have a couple poems in light of what we talked about. I write poetry, and I also sing. Esther O'Reilly had a comment about my musical voice, and I laughed because I thought I am a singer too. So that she was pretty perceptive.
Well, you've got 5 minutes. Use it as you will.
Okay, so I'm just going to read. I'll read this one for sure. I wrote this many years ago, but it's about the fact that God has us. Okay, so I hope it's understandable. There is such a fine line that I walk upon. As I look down on it, it is there and gone. Then how I weary of the light that shines, making it thick once, making it fine. As the one foot falls right after the other, the line swerves around and draws itself under. As I try so hard to stay out of its wake, I'm still held by the path that it makes. So I pray God's face really shines on mine, ever changing the perspective of my fine line.
It's nice.
Yeah. And then maybe I'll just close with this one here. Because I like to think about God a lot, and the more you think about God, the more you feel your own limitations, because he's so infinite, right? And so that's kind of what this is about. The little hands ticking, not subdued by my time. The little bird sits in the cedar's design. The wind ruffles feathers as the little bird climbs, and I'm having no trouble with finding the rhyme. How I envy the cedar's wisdom sublime. If the little bird's folly and nonsense were mine, the Creator's intentions, his ancient design, for a world with no sorrow, no tears, and no dying. Yes, the stature of cedars lead my eyes to the heights. My deep calls to the deep with infinite sighs. My thoughts travel circles in a cloudless sky, and I endlessly curse my finite mind.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll just leave it at that, Paul.
Well, wonderful. Well, thank you, and I will send this to you, and if you decide you'd like to post it. And everybody, I always say that. And the ones that we post, obvious people are like, yes, post it. Yes, post it. Well, if you saw it, we already posted it.
Yeah.
Good to talk to you again, Shari.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you very much for your time, Paul.
All right. Take care.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, that's fantastic.